Welcome to a special edition of Andy and Ari on 3, presented by Wendy's. And Ari, we got one team in the playoff. Like, we're pretty sure. We're pretty sure some other teams are in the playoff too. But we have a conference champion that we think is in the playoff. Boise State beats UNLV.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's the first official, no doubt about it entry.
Right. Right. No doubt.
Yeah, and this is a game that I thought was going to be a lot closer than it was. Andy actually has spent the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, you tried to hype it up.
I tried to, I even put UNLV in my bracket. So like I thought that it was going to be a much closer game, and at the end there, if UNLV made a few plays in the second half, maybe they could have made it close. But I think we saw who was clearly the better team on the field out there, and a pretty worthy entry into this field. And I think you have to say it. They probably would have made the playoff even if there wasn't an automatic bid with the season that they had. Their only loss coming to 1 point defeat on the road to the number one team in the country right now, and basically making short order their entire schedule, beating UNLV, a top 25 team, twice.
Yeah. And what does this mean now? Because what everybody wants to know is, where are they going to be seated? Because they are ahead of Arizona State. They are ahead of Iowa State. Those are the two teams that are playing for the Big 12 title tomorrow. Presumably, they will stay ahead because they won the game.
Yeah, I mean, I've been operating under the assumption, Andy, for the last month that the Power Four would be the top four seeds. And, we've been talking about it on the Tuesday night playoff shows that that's probably not the case right now, because if you put, Boise with another quality win over a ranked team, because UNLV being ranked, I think, is important in this discussion.
Right.
Because you're adding another ranked win, and I don't know how the committee views it, but it should count as two separate, even if you beat the same team twice. To add that win to your resume while already ahead, I think that probably makes it a pretty safe bet that they'll be ranked ahead of whoever wins the Big 12 game on Saturday.
I think so. And now here's the other question. If Clemson beats SMU, is Boise State your 3 seed? Because I think that's entirely possible.
I think that is impossible, or possible too, because if that does happen, then you have a 3-loss situation there. So I don't know if I believe, and I don't know, like, here's the thing. Like, do you believe that Boise is the third best conference champion, just in terms of who the best teams are? I think you can make the case that maybe they are. Yeah.
Okay. So it's hard to say, because in terms of who they've played in the power conferences, it's Oregon. But we think Oregon's the best team in the country, and they had Oregon on the ropes in Eugene.
And I also think, too, that having Oregon on the ropes at Eugene, even if it's not a win, nobody rolls their eyes more than me, Andy, when it comes to the idea of quality losses or proving yourself. But I think that in the context of a G5 team, trying to prove that they're worthy, going toe-to-toe with a team that, people would have automatically assumed they couldn't compete with had they not played, means a lot.
Right.
So, the thing that will be interesting to see how the committee approaches it is, will they rank Boise in accordance to how good they think they are in comparison to some of these other teams? And if they do it that way, what on their schedule or on their resume this year would make you think that they can't compete with an Oregon when they already have?
We've already seen them compete with an Oregon, and that's the thing. Now, what's interesting is, if they are the 4 seed, then they are probably going to wind up playing somebody very good in their first game. So let's explain, before we start, how this works with the bowls and the quarterfinals, because again, we don't think Boise State is going to have to play a first round on campus game. So the way the bowls and the quarterfinals work is, at least for the next 2 years, for this season and next season, it is based on conference tie-ins. So the SEC champ will go to the Sugar Bowl, the Big Ten champ will go to the Rose Bowl, the ACC champ would go to the Orange Bowl, but the Orange Bowl is a semifinal this year. Next year, the ACC champ will go to the Orange Bowl.
And it's still kind of swirling.
So it's probably going to go to the ACC champ probably goes to the Peach, just because of geography. So if it's at SMU, I think they're Atlanta, Phoenix, fairly equidistant. You send SMU to the Peach, you send Boise State to the Fiesta, which very fitting that Boise State would end up in the Fiesta Bowl if it does, because that is where one of the greatest games of all time was played, the Boise State-Oklahoma Fiesta Bowl after the 2006 season. But also, do you remember, Ari, in 2009, there were 5 undefeated teams. It was Alabama and Texas who got to play for the national title. Big East champion Cincinnati. And remember, the Big East was a BCS conference at the time. So it was one of the chosen 6 conferences. Boise State and TCU also went undefeated. Boise State won the WAC. TCU won the Mountain West. Remember, they matched them in the Fiesta Bowl, and we were all sure it was because they didn't want them embarrassing a power conference team.
Oh, man, I remember that. Do you know what is really sad? That was 15 years ago.
I know. I was at the Boise State Oklahoma game.
That was my first year as a professional in this business. So that was it.
Yeah, you're old now. Congratulations.
So I'm old now. But yeah, so the thing is, and I think we at least have to talk about this for a second, but I saw the column or the headline of the column that you're posting on On3 at the moment, and I thought it was really fitting. I think we need to kind of discuss how appropriate that is.
Yeah.
As Ashton Genty standing on the stage here, with a Mountain West.
Yeah, 209 yards. He was awesome, by the way. Here's the thing with Boise State. So I was at that Boise State Oklahoma game. It is still my favorite football game that I've ever been into in my entire life. There was only one thing missing from that game. When Ian Johnson scored on the Statue of Liberty for the 2-point conversion to win the game and dropped to one knee and proposed to his girlfriend Chrissy on the sideline or in the end zone, Boise State season was done. That was it. They could not go on and play more. Like, the national championship was decided in that stadium the following week when Florida played Ohio State. Boise State didn't get a chance to play anybody. The other good teams from 2006 didn't get a chance to play anybody else. It was just Florida and Ohio State because it was 1 versus 2. Mm-hmm. Boise State never made the 14 playoff. Cincinnati did as a group of 5 member, but then they got the golden ticket. That's the other part that's interesting is Utah was the original BCS buster as a Mountain West school. They got the golden ticket. Cincinnati made the 14 playoff from the American. Then they got the golden ticket. Boise State never got the golden ticket. It just sits there carrying the flag, or in their particular case, the sledgehammer for all the group of 5.
Yeah, and like the headline of the column was they might not win a national championship, but they finally get to play for one.
Yeah,
they finally are allowed to win.
Right, and that's the thing. They may not win, but it's not because some system blocked them. If they lose, they lose, and the assumption is they will lose. The assumption is that they're going to have to play. Let's think about who they have to play. If they're the 4 seed, they're probably going to get the 5 seed because the 5 seed's probably going to beat the 12. So we are probably talking about
Penn State's the team at the moment.
It would be Penn State at the moment, but it could be Oregon if they were to lose to Penn State in the Big Ten title game. It could be Texas if they were to lose to Georgia in the SEC title game.
It's actually probably fairly certain that the field that you get
might even be Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, the field that you get on the screen on ESPN on Tuesday is most assuredly not going to be
right,
what it looks like.
Because some of this is going to change because Oregon's going to play Penn State, Texas is going to play Georgia, SMU's got a game. We'll see what happens. But the first game that Boise State would have to play is very hard. But that doesn't
mean that they're the 4 seed.
Right.
Also, too, remember they could be the 3, and there's a big difference there. But yes.
Well, let's take a look at that too, because the 3 gets the 6-11 matchup winner. It's not going to be easy either.
Yeah, I think that there's one certainty here, and it's if you are playing the second round game against the bye teams, those are going to all be good games. Like, I don't know that we're going to see a lot of rollover matchups. Hopefully in that era or in that round, and maybe we would have had the sport been shaped like it was 5 years ago with this system, but like that's just not the reality of it right now. You're looking at teams that are the 11 seed that could beat the 1 seed, and that's not something I thought was realistic.
Yeah.
When this system was even unveiled.
So Mark in the chat says he wants to see an SEC team go to Boise. I would love that. It's not going to happen because they're going to get a bye. But how awesome would it be if like Alabama had to go play on the blue?
It looked
in the playoff
out there. It looked. I mean, we're in Nashville right now, and it's great because we get to watch the games together and do shows and write at the On3 headquarters. But we walked to dinner tonight, and like I have lived in the Midwest for a decade. I am dying right now. Like I turned the heat on in my hotel room. And if you know the one thing about me, Andy, it's that my number 1 rule for getting into a hotel room is step 1, put your bag down. Step 2, meat locker on the thing.
61 degrees on the thermostat.
Maybe it's because I'm not as fat either. Like that's part of it.
It's
too.
possible.
I'm like getting cold now, and I've never been a cold person.
The layer of blubber has diminished. But that I think probably affected that game too. And it's interesting because I did talk about it when we were talking about the American Athletic Conference Championship game in our pick show. I didn't mention it when we were talking about the Boise State UNLV game, but UNLV is a dome team that lives in the desert. Like, of course that was going to be unpleasant for them.
Yeah, and I mean, it actually looked like it was. And, another team that had to go play in the cold, too, they got their doors blown off. Was Tulane.
That would be Tulane that went to Army and just got hammered by Army.
They couldn't get a stop in that game if you gave them a million tries, it felt like. So, yeah, it's unfortunate because Army won the American, and I do think it's kind of a neat thing when a service academy wins a conference.
So let's talk about that, though, because I think there are probably going to be some questions that we get because Army is now 11-1. Now, they still have to play Navy next week. That does not count for playoff selection and all that. But the thing is, we're not projecting Army into the bracket. We're not even really thinking about it because Army is now ranked number 24 after getting clobbered by Notre Dame. And I just can't see them ascending that much.
And if you wanted to try to play that game, it would have been really helpful if Tulane hadn't lost to Memphis.
Yeah,
because then that would have been an extra quality win. But like, I guess you can start trying to play the mind game of if Clemson wins the ACC, is it possible that 2 group of 5 teams go and the ACC champ is left out? But like, we're having conversations right now about potentially having 2 ACC teams. I just don't see that there's a path for them to make.
No, I don't either. I mean, here's the path. Let's talk tomorrow and let's talk potentially what might happen. So the game that feels like the key to everything to me, Ari, is still the ACC championship game. It's Clemson against SMU. And if SMU wins, SMU will be the 3 seed. Clemson's out, obviously, because that would be loss number 4 for them. And probably Alabama's going to get the 11 seed in the final at-large spot.
Yeah, right. So if the game of the day on Saturday isn't just because of the matchup, it is the results of the game are going to determine greatly who, well, maybe not who gets in, but the arguments we're going to be having between midnight tomorrow and noon the following day on Sunday. Because we don't know. I think there's going to be a debate no matter what happens, because you will have a faction of people who think that if SMU wins and there's that spot that's open, but if SMU loses, there's going to be a faction of people that think we still need to have the discussion, and the committee probably will, between Alabama and SMU as a 2-loss team. So, that's going to be the game that decides it and how it looks. And, frankly, what the results are on the scoreboard could play a part in that too. So, we had Rhett Lashley on the show earlier this week, and, he was bemoaning the idea that you could be punished playing for playing an extra game that other teams that are just kind of waiting in the wings aren't playing in.
Yeah.
And I think I buy that, but that's the game of the day.
That is the game of the day. But we do have the SEC championship game, Georgia and Texas, which Arch Manning playing the 2006 Tim Tebow role. Which Georgia will we see? Which Texas will we see? Will it look like the first game or be completely different? The Big 12 championship game, Arizona State against Iowa State. The winner's in. Like, this is that's going to be the first. Winner is in, loser is out.
Congratulations to Iowa State and Arizona State. You both made the playoff. It starts tomorrow.
It does. It does. Isn't that what Kevin Stefanski told the Browns in like week 2?
Yeah. You're in the playoff now. Every game,
because you're probably not going to make the real one.
And guess what, Andy? They got knocked out in week 3.
Yeah.
So.
Now, here's the thing: Iowa State or Arizona State, one of them is going to dance on the field in Jerry World, and they are going to the playoff. Unlike the other team that normally plays in Jerry World.
Yeah, they're also not going to.
Yeah, they're not. But whoever wins the Big 12 championship game is in. So I think the beginning and end of the day are where the real excitement is, which is strange because it used to be that the SEC championship and the Big 10 championship were the ones that you thought were going to be the most monumental. Now it's not like that because we are assuming, and I think it's a safe assumption, that both teams in the SEC championship game will get in and both teams in the Big 10 championship game will get in.
And I think it's going to be like this every year, Andy. I just don't know that there's going to be what scenarios would
which is why they want to change it to 14 in 26, so that those 2 games more than likely will be for the bye. So there will be some stakes on those games, and the other games might have natural stakes anyway. Although, 2 extra spots, who knows? But it's going to be fascinating. We've never seen it before. And then on Sunday, we get our first 12-team bracket.
Yeah, and another time when it's not this late, you'll have to explain to me the math on how 14 solves that problem. But I
It doesn't solve the problem. It just eliminates 2 buys and creates only 2 buys instead of 4.
Okay, so you're hoping that that in that scenario that the SEC and the Big Ten are both playing for 1 and 2, like they would have been anyway.
Yes, that is the point. But they would get a bye. The winner would get a bye.
The winner of the game would get the bye. I get it.
Yes.
But I mean, they also get the bye now.
Right, but they'd get the only buys.
Okay.
The bye would actually be valuable. They wouldn't get the same thing as Boise State.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I guess
that's why they're
playing for the bye already. But yeah, okay.
Right. They would be playing for the only buys. It's artificial. They gotta come up with some way for their cash cow game to mean
that
something.
doesn't move me a lot, but we can talk about.
Well,
that.
Josh has a question for you. I'd love to hear Big Ten Ari's justification for Penn State to deserve a home game over Tennessee if they lose by 10 plus to Oregon. Their resume sucks. What he used to justify Ohio over UT. Hypocrite. I don't know.
You did such a good job acting. Let me read it so I can visualize.
Ohio State has 2 good wins to 2 playoff
Are we
team
still
wins.
doing the Ohio State?
Ohio State's gonna be ranked over Tennessee. Sorry, they are. Penn State probably will be too. Well, I don't know. If Penn State gets their doors blown off, they might not be.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just here's the thing, and
wouldn't it be funny though if Penn State drops and then Ohio State's still ranked ahead of Tennessee, which would make you right, but then Tennessee moves up enough to get a home game, and Penn State has to go on the road.
Well, I mean, it just depends on whether or not you think that the committee should penalize teams that are playing an extra game, because that is a pretty big.
Brett Lashley had some strong opinions about that.
Well, I mean, it is when you talk about stakes for the Big Ten championship game, it might not be the case for Oregon, but for Penn State, certainly to go from 1 loss to 2 with no overt quality wins booing their resume, like you do, like Tennessee has a much better case,
right,
in comparison to Penn State than they did for Ohio State. Like, I think this Tennessee versus Big Ten Ari thing is so funny because I never even was saying who I think is better or wasn't even really that passionate about it.
And stop whining. You're in the playoff. If you have to go on the road and win.
But it's it's just not complicated.
Yeah.
One team has 2 top 10 wins, and whether or not you think Indiana and Penn State deserve to be ranked in the top 10 is an entirely different issue. That's your prerogative. If you think that Indiana stinks and they didn't play anybody and they actually are a fraud, you're allowed to think that. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. What I was trying to say is how it works in reality, and how it works in reality is teams who acquire wins over teams that are ranked in the committee's top 10, whether you like it or not, are going to get ranked higher than teams that don't have.
Ari, I think sometimes people just get mad when you tell them what's going to happen, and then that thing happens. But
it wasn't even a thing of going out on a limb.
It's not going out on a limb, but it's not their favorite thing happening. And they want their favorite thing to happen. I said, Alabama's the team they're going to pick in that logjam of teams. Guess who the team they picked was? Alabama.
Yeah.
You said Ohio State's going to be ranked ahead of Tennessee because Ohio State has wins against Indiana and Penn State, which are both in the playoff, and Tennessee has wins against Alabama, which may or may not be in the playoff.
I mean, if you pay attention to college football and the way that the committee has operated for the past decade, it's very easy to read between the lines on what they're going to do, because they've operated very similarly on a year-to-year basis. And I don't know if it's just because you and I spend so much time thinking about it and
it's because we don't care where they wind up.
Maybe that's it.
If we cared deeply about one team or another, then we'd get mad too. But
it should be pretty simple for people who just approach it with, here's what the resumes are, here's how they've done it, to put the pieces together on the road.
It was pretty obvious how that was going to play out.
But in terms of Penn State, let's answer the question.
Yeah.
So if Penn State loses and has a second loss, then their resume with a second loss, even though they did play an extra game,
kind of like Indiana at that point,
they aren't better than Tennessee's resume. So
no.
Throw an olive branch to my Tennessee friends over there. If we do penalize teams for losing the conference championship game, and then you're going to penalize Penn State, or at least hold them accountable for 2 losses the way that Tennessee does, Tennessee's win over Alabama, who could be another playoff team, should, in theory, vault them ahead of Penn State.
And it should slide them into a home game.
Yes. So, the idea, and even I misunderstood this. Last week when we were talking about Ohio State, Tennessee, and I was like, this is going to be a great game. It's I don't think they're going to play each other.
Right. They would play each other if the season ended last week.
Yeah,
that
but
was
they're
the
not.
ranking.
I don't think that's going to be the first round matchup at all. I don't
No,
even think
because there's going to be movement one way or the other. Because Penn State, like Oregon, may not move. Texas may not move, but they could move if they lose. Penn State and Georgia could move. So, like, there's possibility for movement all over the place.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
Oh, Josh says thank you. That's all I was saying. There you go, Josh.
Oh yeah, no. And hey, listen, Josh, I just want you to know, bud, I like Tennessee. Like, I know, I think they're awesome.
He had Tennessee winning the national title after they beat Oklahoma.
I've
so
written really nice columns about it. It's like it wasn't an anti-Tennessee thing. It was just me trying to explain how it was going to work. That's all.
Ty asked, can we talk about how Notre Dame needs to join a freaking conference? They don't. Ty, if they don't want to, they don't have to. He who has the golden helmet makes the rules.
I'm just trying to put the puzzle pieces together, Andy, and who we think. Like, do you want to make a prediction of who's going to be the 5 seed?
Yes, let's do that. Well, I think that requires you to know who's going to win the Big Ten and the SEC championship game. So let's try that. Okay. All right. Let's say Texas wins the SEC title game, and Oregon wins the Big Ten title game. And Oregon's victory over Penn State is double digits. Your 5 seed is Notre Dame.
The reason why
I know.
I did that.
I know. I was
because he said
you set me on the path, and I walked down the path.
I literally, because it is going to be Notre Dame. I really believe that, unless Penn State beats Oregon. But if they don't, I think it's them. I guess maybe Texas if Georgia beats Texas too.
Josh has zero beef with Ohio State over Tennessee. I appreciate that, Josh.
Yeah, I appreciate that too.
Logical.
Rational thinking is the key to freedom and happiness, really.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. We have to get some sleep because there's a whole day of games. We're going on after the Big 12 championship game tomorrow because that's going to put a team in the playoff.
Yeah,
I think we're very excited.
Seeing a lot of our face tomorrow.
Yeah,
I just got this feeling.
Also, if North Carolina hires Bill Belichick, we are immediately going on the air.
Yeah,
I didn't even bring my hoodie, and I'm really upset about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I have a hoodie that you can wear.
I have a hoodie, but not the hoodie I was wearing in the original Big Bill Belichick video, which kind of was Patriots colors.
Be a man and go on to a website and buy one and have it overnighted to the office tomorrow. Patriots hoodie.
I am in a big city. Well, I think I'd need to get a UNC hoodie.
No, you would need to get a UNC hoodie and scissors.
And cut the sleeves off. Yes. Oh. Explaining that one either on the expense report or to the wife if it gets denied on the expense report was going to be.
You do strike me as somebody who would wear a UNC hoodie without the sleeves at home, just like
100%.
Yeah.
I don't. I'll tell you what. It is a thing that people do. I see them in the gym all the time. Hoodie, no sleeves. I'm not there yet. I've not.
Because you have to have rocket biceps for that, right?
My arms are okay. My arms are decent. They're decent.
But
I'm not there yet, though.
They sell hoodies for the really ripped people that come with no sleeves.
They do. But
you have
Bill Belichick makes them sleeveless himself. And if you saw that ring camera video from the summer, Bill Belichick's a unit.
Still got it.
He's an absolute unit.
I hope when I'm 70 years old, I still have it like that. I barely have it like that now, man. Like I just like
so. If Bill Belichick is hired as a college football coach, don't worry. We'll be on your screen immediately. Also, when teams make the playoff tomorrow, we'll be on your screen. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure. Talk to you tomorrow.